Cool. So, when Christian sent around an email around the office to say, has anybody got any interest in talking to the Jenkins user group or the Jenkins meter group, I thought back to the mists of time when I wrote a plugin, and I thought, well, I might as well get the chance to talk about myself for a little while, so I volunteered to present. So it's basically the anatomy of a Jenkins plugin, how my particular plugin works. I think I should say at the very outset, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So within Jenkins there are multiple ways to write a plugin. So I'll explain the way that I use, and I'll touch on a couple of the other ways as well to give you a little bit of a flavour. It's a fairly high level presentation. If you want some more detail, I'm happy to go into it, and if you have any questions at all, please feel free to interrupt me. So myself, Jim Gallagher is my name. I'm a technical solutions architect here in D&B. I'm 20 plus years working in tech. Started off writing COBOL on giant mainframes for banks, and I've worked my way through various other pits of hell to get to here, which is a wonderful place, let me say very quickly, with the head of HR in the room. I'm loving it, and everything's perfect. I'm an experimenter. I drive people mad by trying to solve a meta problem by trying to solve a specific problem. So if I get an issue and I think I can solve it for everybody, I'll do my best to try and do that. And in case we're going to be sending around the slider, that is my LinkedIn there if anybody wants to keep in contact. So the plugin that I decided to write, we had a large UI project here which had a large suite of Cucumber tests. Anybody who doesn't know what Cucumber is, it's a behavioral business-driven development? BDD testing framework. Basically, you spin up the actual app itself in a controlled environment, and it executes using Selenium WebDriver, that sort of stuff. They are usually complex, and they're not always the most performant things you'll ever come across. Our large suite seemed to be getting slower, so I decided there must be something about this. I went digging into it to see could I find out a way to put in timings, and it actually turns out the Cucumber itself records timings down to the nanosecond level. So I thought, that's great, the information is there for me to process, and then I thought, well, this sounds like something that could be useful to other people. So I decided to have a crack at it, simply as a learning opportunity. I made a couple of design decisions. I decided, as a bit of a no-brainer for a Java dev, to use Maven. It is possible to use other build tools. Maven just has a couple of specific plugins that do make it easy. Jenkins also published a pair in POM, which makes it very easy to pull back specific information and bring in the information that you need. It has a specific packaging, which is HPI. Please don't ask me what it stands for. And you can specify the lowest version of Jenkins that you use. Jenkins provide things called extension points, which are your way of getting your code to run within the Jenkins environment. You can do them in a couple of different ways, but I decided to do them by implementing specific interfaces, which I'll go through. I say there read and learn on prior art. That's a little bit disingenuous. What I did was I found a plugin I liked the look of, and I read it and copied it mercilessly. I did email the author afterwards and explained what I'd done, and his answer was, thank God for that, at least somebody's reading it. So people are happy if you use their code, so please feel free to have a look through it. First class, there are two specific classes that interact with Jenkins. Everything else is just very simple, normal Java. The first class is the recorder. Okay, it has an extension point of recorder, which is a Java interface, and that is a particular type of activity that you can do within Jenkins. If you think about it, things you can do within Jenkins, you can do build, and there's an extension point for that called a builder. You can do some notifications. There's a notifier. And this is a recorder. What it does is it looks at things that happen during a build, runs code, posts that build, and allows you to record and notify on those particular pieces of information. This performs the plugin setup, and it makes it available in the post-build actions on a job. So you can then, as you're setting up the job, you can scroll down, and it gives you an option to choose it in the post-build actions. At that point, you can also set some sensible defaults for some of the stuff that you need to pass into this particular class.
So recorder is a post-build?
I beg your pardon?
Are all post-build actions recorders?
Not. All recorders are post-build actions. Not all post-build actions are recorders.
Okay.
constructor is annotated with a particular annotation that is data-bound constructor, and what that simply does is it says these are the fields I'm expecting to receive from the screen, from the job setup screen. Now that will be. I'll show you how to manage the UI in a little while. You then have a specific perform method which you override, which has a specific signature, and that's where you use that's where you can execute the actual work of the plugin. A lot of people would use that simply to gather the pieces of information from Jenkins that they need and delegate it off to another class to simply do the work. So what I did in that situation is I scan the build, I find the relevant Cucumber files that I'm looking for, and I perform the various calculations that I need to do, and then I write it back out to disk for any future iterations of the plugin, or for the UI portion, which I'll go through in a minute. The perform method has a specific signature which gives you 3 specific objects. So you get a build object, which gives you the existing build, its workspace, its name, its version number, and all the various other pieces of information about that. Crucially, it gives you access to all the previous executions that are stored. I'm trying to remember, is it that are stored on that particular machine or that are stored within Jenkins? I think it's that are stored within the entire system. So obviously, if you're looking for something that's generating trend data, which this plugin is, you need to go back through the various pieces of the various iterations of the job so you can gather that data. It gives you a launcher object, which I don't actually use, but it contains specific environmental variables. I think it also allows you to spawn off subtasks and do certain pieces of information about that. I'm not particularly well up on what it does because I never actually needed to use it. And it gives you a build listener, which has the crucial portion of giving you the logger, which allows you to write to the Jenkins console. So in other words, you can actually report on your progress and you can explain to people exactly what's happening, which is great when it works and really great when it doesn't, because you can need to tell people what's going on. So that's the plugin itself and how it does its actual piece of work. All of that is great, but no user actually gets to see anything. So the next portion you need to do is interact with Jenkins UI. To do that, you have a thing called an action interface. Again, everything that uses the UI isn't necessarily an action, but all actions are to do with the UI. What this does is it inserts a link into the menu on the left-hand side, the standard menu when you see a job, when you look at a job performance, and allows you to select. You can select that link, and it brings you then to a particular UI page. The action class itself acts as a backing beam for that page template, okay? And it exposes all the information that you need using public getter methods. There's no overridden methods. There's nothing within this that specifies how you do that. You simply use public getters. What I did was there was a lot of information that I needed to pass back specifically into JavaScript table plugins. So what I did was I exposed it all simply as JSON streams. Yeah. The user interface. This bit can be complex. I started off by ignoring how Jenkins did it and literally just returning HTML to be displayed. The problem with that, of course, is that you don't get to interact with the nice Jenkins UI, you don't get to sit in the right frames, you don't get the right CSS classes. It doesn't necessarily, didn't provide a good user experience. So I changed it to use Jenkins, which has Stapler as its UI framework, and Jelly is the tag language. It's very similar to JSP, if you've ever used JSP, and it just provides a simple way of producing data onto the screen. It also has some very, I wouldn't say complex, but very sophisticated ways of delineating your screen, breaking it out, putting in headers and stuff like that. And because it all inherits from the existing Jenkins, I think you don't have to worry about your CSS. If you put in a table, it'll look like a table in Jenkins. If you put in a list, it'll look like a list. It makes it very easy to handle your look and feel in that situation. Each action class has an index.jelly. So in other words, when you hit that link, it's the index.jelly page that gets loaded. You can also put in other templates for other pieces of data which can be loaded off that page, but every action class must have at least one index. It's stored in a Maven build. It's stored in source main resources in an identical directory structure. So in other words, if your package is com.dnb.cucumber, it must be the same directory structure within source.main resources to access the index.jelly. If you can imagine, you may have multiple index.jelly files in there, so it's very important to make sure you're pointing at the right one, or you can very, very much confuse people. To include data, you use the it object, which is the jelly root object, and then the dollar curly brackets notation, similar to that. It's similar to how it's specified there. There are other approaches to use. You can use annotations instead of interface extension points. No idea how that works. Haven't done it, no. I've never done it, so I'm telling you it. Go forth and learn about it should you wish to. There are other types of extension points which we went through, things like builders, notifiers, and publishers. The plugin itself, I have to confess, hasn't been maintained particularly well. I'm not a maintainer on it anymore, simply because I don't have access to that large Cucumber suite anymore. We ditched it a little while ago through for no fault of Cucumbers, but for various operational reasons. I did have a look today on the Cucumber on the page, the Jenkins page for that plugin, and it's working out at about 800 downloads a month, which I'm staggered by and makes me seriously question their data gathering approach. This does not seem that there are 800 people a month out there interested enough in this to download it. Maybe it's cumulative. I don't know. Maybe that's ever since. In terms of resources, there's quite a lot of good resources out there. Jenkins itself, the Jenkins CI site, has some very good information. There's a standard Wikipedia of how to write plugins, what their information are, where the resources are. There's a very good tutorial there for writing a builder, which is obviously a little bit more complex because you're looking to actually create actions. There's a guide to Jelly, and there is also the GitHub site of the particular plugin that I've been talking about. Any questions? Anything that I glossed over, or anything that's bothering people?